Welcome to KIMEcast, where we break through and cut the BS in sports medicine, rehabilitation, and sports performance, and talk about how things really work. Welcome to KIMEcast. Tony Mikla here with the man, Vince Minnie. This is where it all started for us, so I'm excited to have Vince on today and just kind of share a little bit of our story, our experience, really what we wanted to set out to build, and this concept, this idea of this integrated model of strength conditioning, of sports medicine and physical therapy, rehab, and putting it together. We just obviously see a huge need for it, and it's always one of those things that's challenging to integrate. I think it's becoming more and more interesting, maybe more and more popular to some degree, but the rate at which we've done it and the relationship that we have has been awesome. So we certainly wanted to talk about that a bit. And then I think Vince is just really the reason that we are together in this process is because Vince is such a tremendous coach. I think you guys will get a lot out of his coaching style is fantastic, and his ability to really connect with people. And I think that comes from his background. So I'll give you a little bit of it, and I think you could probably tell a little more of it. But he spent 30 years. Well, first off, started as an athlete, baseball player, but learned that football may have been his calling. Ended up at Temple University playing football, ended up getting drafted to the NFL, played in the NFL for a couple seasons, and then pursued his rest of his career in the Department of Corrections, so 30 years in corrections, I believe.
Yeah, 30 years.
30 years.
30 years.
Which is, there's some ridiculous stories that probably shouldn't be told here, but...
And won't be told here.
Yeah, but if you get a chance to ever talk with Vince, it's really, really interesting and entertaining. But during that time, I think what I've learned from Vince is how much he learned about people and learned about different mindsets and cultures and communications, and learned Swahili in the process as a language.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Stuff you need to know when you're in that environment. But then during that whole time when he was in corrections, he also started a gym. And started a gym. It's been probably almost 30 years now, too.
Just about 30. A little over 23, actually.
Yeah. And just a great story that I think to some degree maybe we've heard before, but really cool. I really want you guys to hear his story of how the gym evolved, and really how the name evolved is super special. But Vince really started this in his garage, just out front, probably small garage, and then moved into a place where he had a great basement. Was the basement like 1,200 square feet or something?
2,500 square feet.
Was it that big?
Yeah, 25, about almost 3,000, yeah.
Yeah, so that turned into a pretty nice gym scenario, but it got busy in there. You know, it had 110 members, started getting a little crazy.
Yeah.
So then we started talking a few years ago, and Vince was about ready to retire from corrections and kind of go all in to really build this facility, and that's where we started talking about getting together and putting together a facility that had strength conditioning as well as this rehab side. And we first met at a conference where we were both attendees at the conference, and I had an opportunity to speak a little bit about screening and doing an FMS screening and screening people about injuries and things that we find, especially in active folks in the fitness community. And so Vince and I were just talking afterwards. He's like, this is something I really want to bring to his people, because of course as a strength coach and as a fitness coach and as somebody in this career, we find people, and everybody's got something. It's just a matter of how much do they have to get it fixed, how much do they have to address. So he obviously wanted to bring some value to his members and help them live a better life and be able to be more successful in the gym. So that's kind of how we started to get going.
First off, thanks for having me here today. It's our relationship has been great, and I think it's really taken its steps along the way. Like any relationship, there's always good, there's always bad, but you always work through it.
Right.
We met at a conference, and I do remember listening to movement and understanding the people that we have in our facility, which ranges anywhere from 6, 8 years old all the way to 80 years old. But what I really noticed is that our adults don't move and didn't move very well. So listening to Tony and his expertise, and he's phenomenal at what he does, afterward I was like, hey, I just want to know a little bit more about this. And in the interim, the one thing I came to know is that as a strength coach, you're not a physical therapist. And as a strength coach, you don't know as much about movement as the people who actually do it every day and deal with people who have the injuries and surgeries and the pathologies that they have. So learning more about that from Tony and his team, really, I thank you for that, because it's made our coaches a lot more alert And we've been through a process of coaches. So I think the one can't really do without the other in a lot of senses, and that's really kind of, I think, how we decide to put some stuff together.
Yeah, so true. Because on the other hand, from a rehab perspective, what we see clinically is, rehab's quite boring at times, and the typical, certainly PT model is a fairly stagnant, it's oftentimes kind of old-looking center that's been around for a while, and it's not really a place of movement. Mm-hmm. So for us to be inside a facility that has the like mindset where we can help folks that are maybe in the lower end of their performance, where they've had an injury or they're a little bit bogged down by some stiffness or some mobility dysfunctions, or they're a little bit weak, and we can kind of help fine-tune that process and get them moving and set some patterns. What we really need as a PT group is the support of strength conditioning to then push them. And I think that's one thing as a therapist that typically as therapists, we're not going to push somebody as hard as a strength coach would, maybe because we have this just more rehab kind of safety mindset to some degree. So it's so great to be in an environment like, you need to be pushed now and take your body to the next level. And it's really this yin-yang balance. And we call it a continuum, right? Mm-hmm. Is that we've got people that start on either a pain state or a mobility state, maybe a weakness state, and they move into more of a stronger state, and they start moving faster, more explosively, and they return back to a performance level. And then where we work together as a PT and strength coach is really that space in the middle, somewhat mobility, somewhat strength, somewhat speed. PT probably works a little more mobility, like maybe 80% of the folks we see, and strength is 20%. We kind of are both 50-50 on strength, probably, maybe a little more to the strength team. And then when it gets towards speed, we might have a few fine-tuning things on the rehab side, but then really the strength team is going to take that on and build it. So it's this constant communication and working with the clients individually and as a group to get people to that level. So that's been so much fun.
Yeah, and I think on that note, the missing piece in there is actually the confidence level, right? So we're along the way, we talk about speed, we talk about power, we talk about strength, but really what you're building is their confidence to perform in a speed state, a power state, and a strength state.
Right.
And I think that's where the two really support each other, and one platform leads to the other platform. And depending on how well that other platform is, depends on how long people have a relationship with you.
Right. I want to talk about that a little bit, because I think this is where Vince really shines, and for me is the best I've ever met at it, frankly, as far as engaging with people and learning about them, what drives them, and where their hurdles are going to be in their process. And we were talking about this the other night, but that's really true coaching.
Yeah.
Is where you identify someone's deficits or maybe where their hurdles are. Maybe the person's not even aware of it, and then to be able to help them see that and overcome it. So can we talk about the name? Because I think that maybe tells the first story more than anything. And it's so it's kind of great in so many ways because it's so misinterpreted. So Vince's gym is called Minnie's House of Pain, and most people are like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds terrible."
Yeah,
I don't want to have pain. That's the whole point of going and doing the fitness work, is I don't want to be in pain. And then of course we're doing rehab work inside Minnie's House of Pain, and it's like, this doesn't seem like a good idea. But it is. It's a great idea. So let me have Vince tell you this story, because I think when you hear it, you'll be like, wow, this is a different spin than I expected, and so great.
Well, you're right, including yourself, including my own business partner, and who's been with me forever, and people on the outside. Basically, when they hear the name Minnie's House of Pain, the first thing you think of yourself is one of two things. Wow, this is really intriguing, and what kind of place is this? Or you're thinking to yourself, well, you know what, I'm not going to go to some place that's going to cause me to be uncomfortable and in pain. And I think what happens is that's where getting to know people really happens, right? Because why don't you take that next step to really find out what this place is all about, okay? Or any place with that name. So how it started was back in the early 90s. I had a young man who would walk past my house every day at 11 o'clock in the morning. And I have no idea why, but one day he stops at the manhole cover in the middle of the street, and this is out in Roseville. And he yells at me, and I'm working out in my garage, and he yells at me, and he says, "Hey, mister, can I work out with you?" And I said, "Come here, man." I said, he walks up the driveway. I said, "How come you walk past my house at 11 o'clock every morning?" "I got nothing better to do, sir." And he called me sir. I couldn't believe he called me sir, right? So I said, "Well, what do you mean you have nothing to do? How old are you?" He goes, "I'm 15 and a half. I'm going to be 16. I said, "Why aren't you in school?" He says, "I don't go to school." said, what do you mean you don't go to school? It bores me. I got nothing to do there. And I could look at him, and I could see he's dirty. I can see he's not, his hygiene's not good. And I said, well, where's your parents? And he says to me, I don't know. Mom left me 5 years ago. He said, and if I go home at night, and I'll just use the word abbreviation, the SOB is drunk, and he beats me every night. I said, so where do you live? And he says to me, well, he says, I live over there. And he points west, and west was the railroad tracks. And I said to him, I said, that's the railroad yard. He goes, I know. He goes, I sleep in a car every night until they kick me out. I was like, hold on a minute. Let's sit down and talk about this. So he sat, and I didn't really think about it at the time. It was just instinctually. So I'm sitting down and I'm talking to him, and I said to him, I said, I'm going to tell you what. And I kind of said this half-heartedly as well, like never thinking he'd take me up on it. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to train you if you do 3 things. You can train with me every day. I said, you got to get clean, we got to reunite you with your family, and you got to get a high school education. He says, okay, I can do that. I said, and I'll help you. So long story short, 3 years later, he accomplished all 3. We ended up getting him reunited with his dad. He got his high school education, and he was clean and getting ready to go to junior college. And at that moment, he walks into the garage one day, and he hands me a garbage bag. And in the garbage bag, it was a gray big leaf garbage bag. He hands me a sign, and I pulled a sign out, and he made it. It was beautiful. I mean, I didn't know he was an artist. And I said, wow, what is this? And he says to me, he says, this is for you. And it was Vincent Minnie's House of Pain, and it was a Taskmaster with a whip, but Pain was in red. And I said, Lance, why are you giving me this? He says, well, he said, you gave me everything and asked me for nothing. He said, this is the only way I can repay you. I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I took the sign, I hung it up on the wall in the garage, and I said, you know, if I'm ever lucky enough someday to get my own facility, I'll name it after you. Long story short, here we are. And for so many years, I've had so many people try to talk me out of the name, but I made a commitment. And you can't go back on that commitment. So, you know, I've even said to Tony, if it were to cost me every single person who ever came through the doors, I made a commitment to this young man that I'll never go back on. So that's how the name came to be and came to stay. And, you know, most people in business would say, you never put your name on a business. I didn't, he did. And so
well, that's how you operate.
Yeah.
That's how you operate, is that level of loyalty. And,
exactly.
And I think that story it's just incredible, like
Yeah.
the impact you had on his life. I know he's successful now.
Yeah, he's a chaplain with a couple of sheriff's department, Yolo County probation, married, 3 children. They're all in college now, and he's doing very well. We still keep in touch, and I think that's the biggest thing is the relationship more than anything.
Yeah. It's just so special. I get to see this with Vince, and this is what we all strive for in this field of coaching. You know, no matter what level you're really doing, if you're doing it in rehab or you're doing it in strength conditioning or in personal training or whatever it might be, is really influencing people's lives.
Yeah.
And so that's such a perfect example and a great thing to be named after. I want people to know more about that story because I really just think it's so moving. It brings what we intend to do to life, and that's really what it's all about, is how can we impact people.
And sometimes we forget that.
Right.
You know, when we're going through the process.
Yeah.
We get so busy and have to see so many people that people tend to seem to forget that.
It happens easily, right?
Yeah.
It just starts to become like, now I have to make money to pay the rent and this and that. And you can get caught up getting a little sideways on the process instead of staying true to the roots. But that's one thing I just respect a ton out of you for is that loyalty, and that it always comes down to the client. We talked a lot about as we started. I'm like, Vince, you know, one thing that you could do is if you could reduce the amount of time you spend in like getting to know the client. You know, most people have like they meet with their client, and it's kind of a meeting and a discovery meeting. Maybe it's 15 minutes, maybe it's 30 minutes. You know, Vince's meeting could be 2 hours.
Yeah,
it's whatever it takes.
It's true
to discover that person.
Yeah.
But then the whole goal is to be able to really then coach them and help them, because it might be a fitness goal, but most people do fitness to improve something in their life.
Yeah.
Right? They want to get in better shape. Yes, they want to be healthier, but to do something else, to play with their kids, to be more active, to be more social, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I always say it's easy to teach a squat. It's easy to teach a bench press or an overhead press. It's easy to see a dysfunction. Or maybe it's not for some people. But really the dysfunction usually starts with the person. And I truly do believe, and I truly live by it every day, and I have some very, very unorthodox ways of reaching people and getting them to know themselves. You mentioned something before about, people not knowing something that they have or finally discovering it. Well, when I sit down with somebody, I always tell them, you're either going to find something out about you that you already know and you didn't fix, and I'm not talking physically, or you don't know that we're going to discover and we're going to fix it together. And I think as a true coach or anything that you do, you have to be watching, you have to be observing, and you have to be studying all the time. And it's not necessarily movement, it's emotion. Because I go back to my college days, and I was a criminology major and a minor in pre-law. And I'll never forget Dr. Kelly. He came in one day, and this guy moved in like the fog. I mean, it was pretty unbelievable. He had a gray jacket on, and he was a forensics guy, and he just moved in like the fog. And he said one day, when you go to a crime scene, the evidence is there, you just didn't find it. And that's how I approach coaching. There's something there about that person that they want to be better, that they want to be the best version of themselves. They just have to overcome that dysfunction that they may not even know about. And I think it's the coach's job to bring that out. And sometimes you're running a fine line, and not every coach can do it. But you're running a fine line, and you've got to get personal. You got to make them get comfortable being uncomfortable with themselves. But then you got to help them feel better and get to that next threshold. Yeah. And sometimes it's painstaking.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen more than one person emotionally as I talk to you. Yeah. But because it's real. It's because it's diving beyond that. Hey, let's make this nutritional change. Hey, let's change your caloric intake or whatever. Mm-hmm. And some of that may be, obviously needed. But then there's always, why did we get to this point in the beginning, right? And I think Vince does a lot of nutrition coaching with his clients as well. And I think the nutrition conversation is actually quite easy to make nutritional recommendations once you evaluate their food plan and you make those recommendations. Mm-hmm. But behind food, as we all know, there's always many emotional ties, or there's just scheduling, lifestyle ties to the food's not available, it's hard to prepare, all these different things, or maybe there's a financial limitation to.
I call it self-sabotage.
Yeah, I love this word. He taught me this, self-sabotage. I'm like, what are you talking about? So, but it is great.
Yeah, it's a lot of coaches will say that it's an excuse. Okay, call it what you want, but really what they're doing is they're self-sabotaging themselves for a host of reasons. One is they don't believe they can achieve their task. Well, it's kind of like when a person walks into a gym. They're going to give you all the reasons why they can't do something. That's their self-sabotage. It's not because they can't do it. It's because they fear they're going to look silly. They don't love themselves enough to do it. They think they're going to be made fun of, or they're going to be judged, or they think they're going to get hurt. So they're really, before they even can be successful, they're self-sabotaging themselves. And as you said, where it comes to like nutrition, it's, Vince, I fed my kids this, but I only had a little bit of it. So you shouldn't have had it. It wasn't good for you, but you're going to give it to your kids anyway, right?
Yeah.
But so it's a lot of self-sabotage, and you're right. Eating is a behavior, and that's a whole nother subject. That's not what we're here for today. But when you truly know the person, you can start cutting, like a good boxer. You can start cutting the ring off on them a little bit, and get them to where they really want to be. Yeah. What they came for, but they were fearful as hell to get there.
Yeah. I've heard you explain it lots of times where someone will be like on the meal plan front or on the fitness front, hey, I want to lose, 10 pounds over the next few months, whatever it might be. And then you give them a meal plan, and they're great Monday through Friday, right? And then
No, Monday through Thursday.
yeah, yeah, because once Friday night's in there, then you're out.
Well, Thursday night just depends if it's happy hour,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And then then it's like, well, I didn't include the bottle of wine I had on Friday, right?
Yeah.
And you use that a lot as a self-sabotage term. Where it's
Always.
like, oh, well, I'm doing pretty good. I lost a pound, so now I deserve this. And it's just so that almost you can repeat the cycle.
Yeah.
Where if we could stay accountable and stay strict to it,
Yeah.
we could blow past this and not make it a cycle.
Well, and without getting into the whole diet industry, every diet's going to promise you that you're going to lose weight, and you will. They're just not going to promise you you're going to keep it off.
Yeah.
That's where the self-sabotage comes in.
Yeah.
Right? This is where we trade what we want the most for what we want at the moment. And that's exactly what happens when you're dealing with people. But you have to know that about the person. So every day, and I think you see this too, Tone, is I'm literally scanning the room. It's like and
So true.
and I'm just looking for people. I'm just looking to see kind of where I can touch, where I can help, and I'll walk over and say just somebody. I mean, you've seen it on the table.
Yeah.
Hey, did you know you got a rubber band on your knee? Did you know that?
Yep.
That's just my way of getting to talk with them a little bit, just kind of see who they are, where they are, what they're about. And I learned a long time ago that life is about relationships. It's not about how much money you have in the bank. It's not about the nicest car you drive. It's not about the biggest house you live in, the bigger spinners you have, the prettiest girl. It's not about that. It's about your relationship. Because in the end, I grew up in a pretty tough family back east in Brooklyn, New York. And I remember vividly, I unfortunately had the ability to watch a lot of people die. It was just the nature of the business, the world, the life, the family. And there was two things I always heard. I never heard somebody who was passing, I never heard them say, oh, how much money did we have in that bank account today? It was always, I'm either sorry for anything I've ever done wrong, or I've loved you with all my heart. That taught me at the age of about 15 that life was about relationship. And I got to be honest with you, and I say this to you all the time, I can sit here today and say this because I made more mistakes in my lifetime than people would ever want to be a friend of mine for. But it's owning those mistakes, it's fixing those mistakes, and being better for those mistakes is why I can have the conversations with people that I have. Because they can't sit there and say, well, you don't understand. Let me tell you what I don't understand, okay?
Yeah.
And, you talked about prison. So when I got done, and I did, I had a 30-year career at the Department of Corrections. I retired as an associate warden, and I came up through the ranks. So think about it. I'm coming out of the NFL. I'm 6 feet, 295 pounds. I'm the probably biggest thing this side of a barn. I walk into a prison, Folsom State Prison, CMF, Solano, you name it, I've worked it. And all of a sudden, nobody cares that you played in the NFL, And it's about survival. And what I learned on living in the streets of Brooklyn, New York, was you better know. You don't have to play the political game, but you certainly got to be politically aware. And when you're aware and you understand people, you can survive. And you mentioned Swahili. Yeah, I had to learn because I was on a tier, it's called a BGF, which was the Black Gorilla family. And without getting into all that, at the time when I started in the department, it was they wanted to kill you and you wanted to survive and go home at night. That's just the way it was. It was violent. And the only way I could survive was I had to learn about them. So long story short, there was going to be an assault, and I had learned some Swahili, and I knew what they were getting ready to do. So I had walked up to one of their leaders' house, and I said some words in Swahili, and he looked at me like, oh my God. And the assault never took place. I made the appropriate connections with investigations and all that. 2 years later, and this is, again, where relationship came in. 2 years later, this guy sees me on the yard. It was in B facility at CSP Sacramento, which was the security housing unit kick-out yard. And I'm on the yard, and he approached. He says, hey, Min, can I have a word with you? I said, sure. He goes, I want to let you know. He goes, you remember that day in the hole? The hole was the security housing unit where your prisoners are locked up. And I said, yeah. I said, Hollywood, I remember it like it was yesterday. He said, I want to let you know something. He said, you got more respect from us on that day because you took the time to learn about us, not because you knew what we were going to do. And again, that was that flashback of knowing people and connecting with people. And you're right, Tony. If it takes me 2 hours to learn somebody, to reach them to be who they want to be, fix what they want to fix, I've spent a lifetime on trying to fix mine, and I don't always do it right. And so it's my goal in life just to make a difference for them. And yeah, I'll spend 2 hours with them.
Yeah, well, you make a huge difference for them. I mean, I think we see it in the gym and the people that we work with, you know, and especially the membership that you have is tremendous. And it's much more than a fitness experience because of this. It really is a coaching and a lifestyle improvement process for people.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people say that, you know, they weren't expecting this when they walked in the door.
Right.
You know, anybody can run a treadmill, anybody can run a Versa climber, anybody can, like I said, teach you how to bench, squat, hinge, carry, but can they teach you about you?
Yeah.
You know, can they really get you to that level?
Yeah. I think with that as a background and people, it's really important to understand this process and how skilled Vince is and experienced and at the forefront caring about his members and his friends and his people, that because he knows that, then he has this unbelievable ability to hold them accountable.
Yeah.
And this when you see it at first, you're like, whoa. Like I remember talking to him, there's just amazing stories that were great. And when Vince was in his basement, there was everybody who's still a member of the gym from that time, which is, you know, 6, 7, 8 years ago, still talks about it like that was a different Vince, but still pretty good. But anyways, I was always like, man, Vince, people pay you for this? These people pay good money for you to coach them, and all you do is you yell at them, you tell them you can't work out, you're not allowed to come in. If you're 1 minute late, I'm locking the door and I'm not letting you in. You can come back tomorrow. You know, you call me later. We'll talk about it. Well, and watching people knock on the door, be like, hey, I'm here. He's like, hey, I see you, but you're late, so we'll see you tomorrow. I'm just like, man, like this is crazy.
But it's funny you say that, Tony. And I hear that word a lot. I hear the word, well, he yells.
Right. Yes.
Right. I don't understand how people take the word yelling for accountability. Right. Or intensity for accountability. And I think that's what fears people most. It goes back to they know something's going on inside of them, and they either want to face it, but like a cat, they got their claws out and they don't want to hit the screen door.
Right.
Or some people will just say, no, I'm not going to face it now. I'm done. I'm not doing this. Okay. I think you see that in every aspect. You see it in PT. You know, they're supposed to finish out. It hurt, right? They got to go through. Yeah. They got to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and they don't like to do it. Yeah. We see it in relationships. That's why our divorce rate is what it is today. Yeah. Right? People aren't willing to fight that fight to be better. Right. And that's again where relationship comes in. And I'll stand on the forefront of that. And there's a lot of people. I will always say something and do something to get a reaction from people. I don't just say it to do it. Sometimes I don't say anything, and people will judge that. Well, I'm not going to take this. He doesn't even talk to me. Well, there's a reason. Come find out, right? Yep. It's part of this work has to be done by you, not just me. So I'm going to say and do things to people, even the PTs. Yeah, I'm going to do and say some things, because I want to see where they're at. I want to get a reaction. Sometimes they say it's not my place. Well, here's the deal. Last time I checked, it is my place. Yeah. Right?
All in it together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's always to make the end product, the total product, the best it can be.
Yeah. I think it's that's the key thing, I think, is the accountability side of this idea of performance and improving someone's lifestyle, improving someone's life period, whether it be in the rehab process or in the fitness process, strength conditioning, performance enhancement. It's, are you really committed to what it is you said you wanted to do? Whether we've got a guy who wants to play in the NFL, whether we got a kid that wants to play in college, whether we got someone who wants to lose 10 pounds, whether we got somebody who said, hey, my leg doesn't straighten out and I want to get it all the way straight again. And then, you know, it's like, well, do you? You know, how hard are you willing to work for that? And here's the things we have to do. And I think that what I loved and still love every day is like the accountability that you bring to the situation and bring to the equation. Like, let's get that. Let's make sure that you see it through. Mm-hmm. And it's not always like, hey, I'm going to support you along the way and I'm going to make it easy for you. There's significant amounts of times we actually make it much harder for them intentionally. Mm-hmm. So they have to really overcome something to get to the next step. And I think it's great it's cool to see and watch from my perspective, because it's not something I've seen a lot of.
And it's a term in the strength world, we call it progressive overload, right? To get somebody stronger.
Right.
In my world, I call it human overload. I'm going to give them a little bit more, and I'm going to come at them a little bit harder to make them grow. And I'll explain it to them after the fact. I never leave somebody without an explanation.
Right.
Okay, if I get after you or I touch a nerve, and I'm going to do that, I already know I'm going to do that, then I'm going to let it marinate a little bit. I'm going to let it hurt a little bit. I'm going to let whatever emotions have to happen. If you want to yell at me, go ahead and do that. Now, you may get thrown out, but that's okay. We'll come back later, and we'll discuss that. But as long as I go back and say, look, do you understand why I did this? Okay? Maybe my tactic, that one didn't work for you. When you go to a doctor, does every prescription that he gives you right off the bat, does that work for you? No.
Right.
It's the same thing here. And we take it to that level. I think you have to, in order to get people to grow, you have to. People don't come here to understand why their squad is so important. They come here for the relationship. They come here for the community and the family. And that's what this place is. It truly is a family. And sometimes, you've heard me say it, I love every person that comes in here, but sometimes love is tough. And that's how I administer it.
Because you really want to see them improve, for sure.
And that's all it's about. So that they're not going to see it today, tomorrow, maybe a year from now, they'll reflect back and go, now I get it.
Yeah, I think we see that a lot.
We do see it a lot.
I think it's pretty tremendous. And you even see it like in the membership. Like Vince doesn't have a minimum to the membership. There's no minimum months or anything. It's like just month to month, because it's really your choice as a member to better yourself and do it, and he's helping you along the way. As a matter of fact, if you do cancel, he might challenge you and call you and be like, hey, come in and talk. Let's figure this out. Why did you do that?
Yeah.
And if you continue, he might challenge you and be like, why are you still coming?
Yeah.
And let's get clear about what we're trying to accomplish here. So I think always comes down to that relationship for you.
Yeah, and it's knowing the person. Because sometimes people will walk out and it's nothing that you did. It's something that they're going through. But the first thing I see a lot of gyms do is, well, okay, they're gone or whatever. That's not okay. What's okay is go find out why. And I'll give you an example. I had a lady one time, she just disappeared. And in the gym for a while, people were thinking like, well, what happened? Did something said? Because I would challenge her. And I got a call after about 11 months, and she wanted to come back. And she said to me, Vince, I know I owe you money. She said specifically about $1,500. I said, well, why don't you come on in and we'll talk about it. So she came back in and she sat down, and I pulled up her account and I said, I said, you got a zero balance. She said, Vince, that can't be. She said, I walked out of here. I said, stop for a second. You walked out of here 10 months ago. I said, 11 to be exact. I said, now, you woke up in your bed, you were hemorrhaging, and you found out you had cancer, am I right? And she went, how did you know? I said, because I care. I said, now, wouldn't $1,500 help you pay some of your medical bills? She just broke down in tears. Again, here we go. I keep tissues on the desk all the time. And so I loved her to death, right? And so she said to me, I can't come back here unless I pay you. I said, okay. I said, humor me. How much can you afford a month? She said, honestly, I said, no, lie to me. And she said to me,
it's not the right person to lie to.
Right. But she says to me, she goes, honestly, Vince, probably about $50 a month. I said, I'll tell you what, 25 and you got a deal. So we settled on $25. And recently I just wrote her a check back for $302 because I said I had to refund her for whatever reason. And so again, if you put a price tag on something, then it's false. There's no authenticity to it. And you have to know people. You have to know their lives. You have to know what's going on, because that's a relationship you'll have forever. And one thing I learned in business is that if you appreciate somebody and you make them feel important, you care, and they get results, you'll have somebody for life.
Yeah, tremendous success.
Yeah.
And then something you're proud of at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Right? Like you said, more than the bank account. But
Well, there's a lot of times, Tone, I've gone to bed at night knowing that I've had dealings during the day and I can't sleep because it's like, could I have handled it differently? Should I have said something differently? Was what I said, will it be insightful enough that they'll come back and we'll have a better conversation? So it's not like I just say things and it doesn't bother me. I may show you my poker face, but a lot of times it eats at me.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the nature of my business anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm okay doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope that we all do that to some degree.
Well,
have
I
that
hope so.
reflection, but I know you do it tremendously.
Yeah. Thanks.
I think from a business standpoint, back to kind of working together and being in a common space. I think being with a common space with just multiple people. Something that's hard in say one company in one space is difficult, but to have two companies in one space, we really have focused from the beginning when we set this out was this to be really an integrated concept and an integrated experience for people where they could come in and recognizing that we'd have people that would come in for a rehab need and that we'd want to move them to more of a strength conditioning and fitness need because I see that so much in our field of rehab that I think so many of our people are struggling and have had pain or had dysfunction, maybe because they lost their ability to be fit, maybe they're a little bit overweight, maybe they're just deconditioned and lost some strength. So obviously we want to build the foundation for that, and I want them to continue it as a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So having this experience is coming through. So we've worked really hard to set up that bridge going up as well as going the opposite direction, where certainly people in fitness and in the gym, there's going to be moments where things are sore, they get a little banged up. These people are active. They went out on a bike ride and had a crash, had a fall, etc. And now they can't maintain their fitness because of a shoulder injury or whatever it might be. So then we get them on the other end and, hey, let's get you in, get you back. And we can modify your program extensively in the way that we collaborate so that that person can maintain their fitness benefits while we're working on a shoulder. There's so much they can do. So to do that, we've worked tremendously through our language. We have a client that I was just talking to the other day. He's like, this place is so amazing because I can be in PT and you tell me to do an arm bar or to do a movement and you say, okay, you can do X, Y, and Z and this is okay. And then I go into the strength room and I'm with the group and I'm doing my fitness class and I tell the coaches, okay, Tone said I could do arm bars and I could do an overhead carry and I could do a sideline extra rotation. They're like, cool, got it. He's like, it's nuts. He goes, usually I'll go to a place and I say something and people call this like this funky, weird name of an exercise and somebody else has a different funky, weird name for it and they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And so this idea of this integrated process has been big for us. And I think that one of the big components is communication, of being able to communicate on a common language. And then two is to be able to have the same vision of being able to really, truly help people every step along the way is what makes it possible, where we can help them at different phases along that platform. And if we all have that same vision together, this is the key thing I'd say if anyone is wanting to do something like this, is you've got to have the same people in the room that are all after the same goal, which at the end of the day is to really improve the client more than improve the bottom line. And I think that's something that I know we share that allows us to continue to prosper side by side in the process. So.
Yeah, I'd agree. And kudos to you, because you're a whole lot more patient with me, I think, than I've been just patient. I'm not a patient person all the time, and I'm not afraid to say that because that's good. That's a double-edged sword, right? But you're right. Working with you guys has taught us, because we didn't always have the right team here, right? And I think as a gym owner and as a strength coach, you have to understand that if you're going to undertake a task like this, the PTs are still under a liability with their patient. And so you really have to understand what they want done when they transition over to make sure that they don't revert back to where they were. I think there's a huge liability there, because whether it's legal or not, it's a reputation. And if somebody gets re-injured, now it's, I don't want to go back over to KIME, or I don't want to go to minis. And and you really brought that to the forefront. That made me think, okay, what kind of coaches do we really have to have here? And so I think the coaching staff that we have built, you have to feel comfortable with. And I'm talking from the PT side.
For sure, yeah.
And if you don't feel comfortable, then that relationship doesn't happen. Then there's not that give and that take back. It's easy for me to say to somebody, oh, yeah, you hurt your shoulder, go see Tony. Go see Lauren. Go see whoever. But it doesn't always work that way because people are now scared. They're over there, and they're like, ooh, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, I think it's trust, right? Trust both ways, right? Because I'm glad that you say that it's easy, but I could also see that if I wasn't good at what I did and I misguided the person, you probably wouldn't find it so easy to send back this way as well, right?
Yeah.
So there's certainly, I think, a give and take balance that we have to have. And in developing that trust, this takes time, and it takes we've worked in many ways of like how we develop education and how we share information with each other so that we can build it. So I guess the point is, in the long-term thought process here, is it does take time and it evolves, and it's important that we stay at the same vision, the same view, that what we're both after and when you're working like this is to really get the customer or get the client to have the right experience, and that they continue to thrive. And if they thrive, then everyone wins at the end of the day. And because everyone's thrive might be different. Some people might just want to have to be able to go out for a walk. Some people might want to actually go play football. Some people might want to just be able to play with their grandkids. Some people might want to play professional baseball, whatever it might be. And so it's just a matter of identifying what are their needs and then helping them along that process. And then we've developed a way that anywhere you are along that process, that we can intervene and help you achieve that next level performance.
On either side of the ball.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's both.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We see that all the time where we'll have someone come in for a PT and it's like, oh, you just need a few things, but let's get you going on more fitness stuff is really what you need, because you really got to build some strength around this. And Vince does the opposite, where someone will come and meet with him and say, hey, I want to do some fitness. He's like, well, your knee doesn't bend, so I can't really do as much with you as I'd like. Let's get you there first. We'll talk about it, and then I'll put together a custom plan for you to make it fit.
But again, that comes down to really sitting down with somebody and assessing what's going on, because it's easy for an owner of a business to go, pay me.
Right.
Okay, pay me. I think it takes a lot of intestinal fortitude for that person to do what's best for the person. And you're right. There'll be a lot of times many times that people will come in and sit with me and I tell them, you're not ready for the gym yet. You really need to go to this side of the house. Let's get some PT, let's get some foundation set. Then we'll bring you on over here. And please don't take offense to that. I'm doing what's best for you at this time.
Right.
And I think as a business person or as a person in this industry, if you're truly in the industry to be a strength coach and to make a difference in somebody's life, you always have to do what's best for them.
Yep. Do the right thing.
Do the right thing.
Simple.
And the right thing doesn't mean it's always with you.
Right.
And
yeah.
that's okay.
Exactly. When to work as a team.
Exactly.
Well, great, man. It's good to have you.
Oh, thanks.
Good to talk through this stuff. And
Yeah.
I mean, I can't. Those of you that are listening, I can't recommend enough to take what Vince said here with to heart and consider why you do what you do and what brings it out every day. I think that I've learned so much from him over the years, and I know he has more and more to share. The many ways that he shares it. You can check us out. Minnie's House of Pain is right here in Dorado Hills. Phenomenal gym. And then he's working on a book as well. So he's working on some other stuff that's coming out in the near future here, which is really cool. Just a tremendous story. So, and he will talk to you if you call. So
Yeah, just give me a call and let's have an appointment. Let's sit and talk. And I suspect you'll find some things out that you didn't think you would.
True that. So thanks, man. It's
Thank
good
you.
to have you.
Thanks,
Sure
man.
appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thanks for watching KIMEcast. This was KIMEcast, and we are the Kime Human Performance Institute. Thank you very much for listening. We'd love to continue the conversation with you. Please hop on our social media. It's at KIMEHPI and engage with us there. If you'd like us to feature a topic or answer any questions live on the show, post your comments there. You can also check us out on our website at kimeperformance.com, and there you can see links to content that we've posted throughout our podcast for more information.